page of the journal stopped me cold. It was handwritten, neat, careful letters. The kind of handwriting that takes its time, that means to be read. I almost didn't read it at all. I was just flipping through to see if there was a name somewhere, some way to return it to whoever had left it. People forget things when they move, especially when they move in a hurry. Then I saw the address. My address. This building. This floor. The apartment number I had signed a lease for 11 days ago. The date at the top of the page was 3 months old. 3 months before I had found this place. Before I had even started looking. I was still in my old city when this page was written. I hadn't handed in my notice yet. I hadn't told anyone I was leaving. The previous tenant had written down my address before I knew it would be mine. I stood in the middle of my own living room and read it again. Slowly. Then a third time. The ink was consistent throughout the journal. Same pen, same pressure, same hand. The handwriting matched every other page. It wasn't added later. It wasn't a different person. The address was written at the same time as everything else. Whoever had lived here before me had known I was coming. I had moved to the city for work. That's the whole story, or it was supposed to be. New job, new city, necessary fresh start after too many years in the same place doing the same thing. 9 years in one city will do something if you're not careful. The streets stop surprising you. The coffee shop on the corner becomes background noise. You stop seeing people's faces on the commute because you've seen them all before, or versions of them. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm saying by year 7 it had started to feel like the walls were slowly and quietly moving inward. Not enough to panic about, just enough to know. Late at night, when the apartment was too still, the offer came through a recruiter I'd spoken to once and mostly forgotten about. She called on a Wednesday afternoon. Better title, better pay, different industry, different city. I said yes faster than I probably should have. I gave notice, told my friends, started putting books into boxes. The whole thing unfolded in about 6 weeks, which felt both very fast and somehow not fast, and finding the apartment was harder. The city was expensive in the way new cities always seem to be when you're arriving from somewhere smaller. I spent 3 weeks in the evening scrolling through listings, filtering by price, by commute time, by whether the photos looked like someone had tried too hard to make the place look habitable. You learn to read those things after a while. The angle of the photographs. The way natural light is described in the listing but never actually appears in any of the images. This one came up on a Tuesday night. 3rd floor of a converted Victorian building, 1 bedroom, the kind of high ceilings that make a room feel larger than it is. The photos showed good light, wide windows, wooden floors that had been refinished at some point but still had the weight of age in them. The price was reasonable for the neighbor, not suspiciously low, just reasonable. I called the number the next morning. The landlord answered on the second ring. He was brisk, not unfriendly, the kind of person who has rented properties for long enough that the conversations have become routine. He gave me the key details quickly. Available immediate. Previous tenant had moved out recently. One thing to mention, some items had been left behind. He'd collect them within a day or two, he said. It shouldn't be a problem. I took the apartment. I moved in on a Friday. The landlord's things were still there on Sunday. Not a lot. A coach stand near the front door. Dark wood. Slightly too large for the space. A bookshelf against the living room wall with a row of paperbacks and a ceramic mug used as a pen holder. 3 pens in it, 2 of them dried out. A box in the bedroom, sealed with tape, nothing written on the outside. And on the kitchen table, sitting squarely in the center as if it had been placed there deliberately, a plain notebook. Dark cover, thin elastic band keeping it closed. I called the landlord on Sunday afternoon. He said he'd come Monday. He said it in the tone of someone who had already half forgotten about it. That evening I unpacked my own things. I made the bed with my own sheets. I lined my books up on the shelf next to the other person's books and told myself I'd sort it out once everything was collected. I made tea and stood at the kitchen window looking out at the street below, the city carrying on without me, everyone with somewhere to be. The particular loneliness of a new city on a Sunday evening when you don't yet know anyone well enough to call. The notebook sat in the center of the table. I picked it up just to move it out of the way, and then I told myself I was just checking. That's what you tell yourself when you open something that isn't yours. You're not prying, you're just trying to find out who it belongs to. The notebook fell open near the front. The first pages were unremarkable. Short entries, undated but clearly sequential, one flowing into the next, gaps of a day or two between. The writing was quick and slightly loose in those early pages. The entries were the kind of thing people write when they feel they should be writing something but aren't sure what. The weather, a meal, a small frustration at work, an observation about someone on the bus. Ordinary. I skimmed. I was looking for a name, a phone number, some way to hand the thing off. About a third of the way through, the tone changed. The handwriting tightened. The letters became smaller, more deliberate, more pressure on the pen. I could feel the indentations on the reverse of each page when I ran my thumb lightly across it. The entries got longer, more careful, like someone who had started writing to think something through and was now writing to try to hold themselves together. They started referring to someone, not by name, just he or him. He was outside again last night. Same place, just past the lamp post, slightly in the shadow where the street light doesn't quite reach. I don't know what time he arrived. I only noticed when I went to close the blinds. I looked up from the notebook. The window was across the room. I had left the blinds open. Outside, the street was quiet in the way streets are quiet at 9 in the evening. Not empty, just settling. A man walking a dog. A car idling outside the building opposite. I kept reading. He doesn't move much. He doesn't do anything in particular. He just stands there and looks up. I've started closing the blinds earlier now, before it gets dark. I don't know if it helps. Mostly I've just stopped going to the window. The entries continued for weeks. The man outside appeared with irregular frequency, sometimes 2 nights in a row, sometimes with gaps of 4 or 5 days. The writer had started noting the times in the margins. Small pencil notations alongside the ink. 9:40, 10:15, 9:55, 10:05. Roughly the same window each night, as if he had somewhere else to be before 9 and nothing else to do after 10. I turned the pages slowly now. I had stopped skimming. I thought about calling someone today. My sister, maybe, or the non-emergency line. But I don't know what I'd say. A man stands outside sometimes and looks at my window. That's not a crime. I don't have anything more than that. I don't know what I'm waiting for before I say something. Then an entry that was physically different from the others. The handwriting was uneven, the letters slightly larger than usual, as if written quickly or in low light. He was inside the building tonight. I heard him on the stairs. I know his footsteps by now. I know the rhythm of... I turned all the lights off and sat on the floor in the hallway with my back against the wall. He stopped outside the door. I could hear him just standing there on the other side of it. I didn't move. I counted to 200 and something. Then he left. I don't know why he left. I put the notebook flat on the table. I sat very still in my kitchen chair and looked at the front door. The chain was off. I had never put the chain on. I hadn't thought to. I got up and put the chain on. Then I sat back down and kept reading. The entries after that page were fractured. Some days were blank. Others were long and circular. The same questions cycling around and around without resolution. Whether to tell someone, whether to move, whether moving would accomplish anything, or whether distance was simply irrelevant to whatever this was. There was a quality to those pages that made me deeply uncomfortable in a way I couldn't entirely name. It wasn't just fear on the page. It was the particular exhaustion of someone who had been afraid for a long time and was running out of the energy that fear requires. One entry stayed with me. I looked him up, or tried to. I described him to my colleague and she didn't know him. I described the way he stands, the coat he always wears, the way he never quite looks directly at the window but always at the angle just beside it. She looked at me for a long time after I described it. She asked how long this had been going on. I told her. She said I should move. She said it simply, like it was obvious, like the solution was just a matter of logistics. I think she's right. I think I've known for a while. I just keep thinking that moving can't be the answer, that this is my home, that I shouldn't have to. 12 pages from the end, the regular entries stopped. Not tapered, stopped, as if something interrupted whatever came next. The last complete entry was short and almost mundane. Didn't see him tonight. Ate something. Couldn't sleep. The page after it had half a sentence. I think I finally understand why he... And then nothing. The rest of the line was blank. Whatever came after that sentence was gone, and the following pages were empty until the very last one. I read the last page slowly this time. All of it, my address, the building, the floor, the apartment number. Written 3 months before I knew I would. And below the address, one line. This is where the next one will go. I stood up from the table. My chair scraped back loudly in the quiet kitchen and the sound startled me. I stood there for a moment, just breathing. The next one, not the next place, not the next address. The next one, a person, a succession of people, and I was the current entry in that sequence. I went to the window. I stood to one side of it, out of the direct line of sight from below, and looked down at the street at an angle. Lamp post, parked cars, pavement wet from earlier rain. A man standing just past the lamp post. Dark coat, still, looking up at the angle just beside the window, not directly at the same angle the journal had described, as if he'd done this before, as if he knew exactly where to stand. I stepped back until my shoulders touched the wall. I stood there in the dark and tried to make my breathing quiet, and even in thought about the sentence on the last page, it thought about the person who had written it and where they were now and why they had left in such a hurry and left. Everything behind, including this notebook, which they must have known we found. Maybe that was the point. Maybe they left it because they wanted the next one to know. I left before the sun came up. One bag, clothes, charger, keys, phone, wallet. I didn't take the notebook. I left it on the kitchen table exactly where I'd found it. I don't know why. I think some part of me didn't want to touch it again. I put the chain off, opened the door quietly, listened to the stairwell for a long time before I moved. Silence. Just a building settling around me, the way old buildings do at night. I took the stairs fast, pushed through the front door into cold, and walked hard to the end of the street without looking back. At the corner I looked, the lamp post, the stretch of pavement just past it, empty. I kept walking. I stayed with a colleague for 2 weeks. I told her there was a problem with the flat. Something structural, water getting in, the landlord was dealing. She said that was awful. She made up the sofa bed without asking many questions, which was exactly what I needed from her. I called the landlord and broke the lease. He was unhappy. I told him to keep the deposit. He became significantly less unhappy. I asked him, as casually as I could manage, about the previous tenant, how long they'd been there, why they'd left. He said she had moved out sudden, very little notice, no forwarding address. He said it with the mild irritation of a man who had been mildly inconvenienced. He said some people just weren't cut out for city living. I asked if anything had ever been reported. Problems in the building, disturbances, anything like that. He paused for just a moment before he said no. Just a moment. Then he said no. I spent an afternoon trying to find her. Not her name, I never had that, but any record of what she described. Reports filed near that address. Incidents in the building or on the street. I found nothing that matched. Either nothing had been reported or nothing had been recorded, or I wasn't looking in the right places. I didn't know which was worse. I found a new apartment 3 weeks later. 6th floor, new building, electronic key fob entry, no character whatsoever. I checked the place carefully before I signed. No boxes left behind. No coat stand. No notebooks on any surface. I looked in every cupboard. I looked under the bed. I stood at the window and looked at the street below from 6 floors up and told myself this was different. I've been here 8 months. Last month I was going through a bag I hadn't fully unpacked since the bag I'd grabbed on my way out that night. The one I'd packed in about 4 minutes. I was looking for a charger I thought I'd lost. In the outer pocket, folded once, was a single page torn from a notebook. I didn't touch it for a long time. I just looked at it sitting there in the bottom of the pocket. Then I picked it up. My handwriting is nothing like hers. I know what my handwriting looks like. This wasn't it. This was the same careful, deliberate hand as the journal. The same pressure. The same small, precise letters. My new address. This building. This floor. And below it, in that same unhurried hand, the same sentence she had written 3 months before I moved into her apartment. This is where the next one will go. I still don't know how it got into my bag. I've been trying to figure that out for 4 weeks now, and I don't have an answer. I packed that bag myself. I was alone in the apartment. The chain was on the door. I've been trying very hard not to think about what it means that the page was already there when I left. That it was with me the whole time, in the dark of that outer pocket, while I walked to the end of the street, and while I slept on my colleague's sofa bed, and while I told myself I was safe because I had left. That it had already found its way to me before I found my way out.